Hello, welcome to another episode of Sewing in Scripture. Today we're going to be covering the book of Daniel, chapters 3 and 4. Now, if you remember in chapters 1 and 2, chapter 1 showed us how Daniel and his friends came into being in the service of the Babylonian kings. Chapter 2, Daniel interpreted King Nebuchadnezzar's dream for him, and it elevated him to a position where he was called into the palace and given a position in the palace. And his friends were also given positions as well. Not in the palace, but they were given high positions as well. So we're going to go ahead and continue with our journey through the book of Daniel, chapters 3 and 4 today. But if you're enjoying these videos, I just want to remind you, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you hit that like. Also, be sure to subscribe to today's channel and ring that notification bell. Remember, YouTube is not going to let you know if these videos are posting unless you hit that notification bell. Also, on a side note, leave me a comment. I'd like to know that you've been here. And finally, this is Sewing and Scripture. So we have sewing over here, but no new projects right now because sewing doesn't just mean physical sewing. We need to be sowing into others, sowing seeds of faith and love with those that are around us. So be sure to share these videos and sow into other people. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and get into the book of Daniel, and we're going to be starting in chapter 3. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. The motive for setting up the image seems to have been an attempt to unify the kingdom and promote the authority of the king. Various explanations have been offered for the grotesque dimensions of the image, 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. It may not have represented Nebuchadnezzar physically, but could have been a distorted figure, or the height could have included a pedestal on which the image was set. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "Nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up." Since some of the names of these musical instruments are Greek, some critics have argued that the book could only have been written after the conquest of Alexander the Great in the late 4th century BC. However, numerous contacts between Babylonia and Greece are attested much earlier. The assumption that technical musical instruments could have been imported and their Greek names retained is not unreasonable. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." The fact that Daniel is not mentioned may be explained in a couple of ways. He may have been busy elsewhere with administrative affairs, or as a higher official, may not have been required to attend the meeting. Daniel chapter 2, verse 49 indicates he remained in the city of Babylon, whereas his friends were assigned to the wider province. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." If he does not indicate a lapse of faith on the part of the three men. Rather, they recognize that sometimes it is the will of God for men of God to die in the line of duty as they serve him. They knew that God was able to deliver them, but did not know if it was his will. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent that the furnace was so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." A son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar had no knowledge of Christ and was probably saying nothing more than a divine being was protecting the 3 men. The 4th person may have been the pre-incarnate Christ, or who often appears in the Old Testament as the angel of the Lord, or may have been an angel sent by God to protect the men. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trust in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble. For no other God can save in this way." Nebuchadnezzar's recognition of the God of the 3 men does not mean that he converted to their religion. It was simply an acknowledgement of their God's power. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So that's chapter 3. We're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 4 now. King Nebuchadnezzar, to the nations and peoples of every language who live in all the earth, may you prosper greatly. Apparently, some time elapsed between the events of chapter 3 and those of chapter 4. Nebuchadnezzar's boast would not have been spoken until after many of his massive building operations had been completed. It is my pleasure to tell you about the miraculous signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at home in my palace, contented and prosperous. So I commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be brought before me to interpret the dream for me. When the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners came, I told them the dream, but they could not interpret it for me. So remember, this is back from chapter 2. Finally, David came into my presence, and I told him the dream. He is called Belteshazzar, but the name of my God and the spirit of the holy gods is in him. I said, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no mystery is too difficult for you. Here is my dream. Interpret it for me. These are the visions I saw while lying in bed. I looked, and there before me a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. So this is another dream or another vision. So he called all the magicians and astrologers in chapter 2 to interpret a dream. Now he's got another dream, and he's telling everybody about it now. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it, the wild animals found shelter, and the birds lived in its branches. From it, every creature was fed. In the visions I saw while lying in bed, I looked, and there before me was a holy one, a messenger, coming down from heaven. He called in a loud voice, Cut down the tree and trim off its branches. Strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it, and the birds from its branches. Let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the animals among the plants of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass by for him. The decision is announced by messengers. The holy ones declare the verdict, so that the living may know that the Most High is sovereign over all nations on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes, and sets over them the lowliest of people. This is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now, Belteshazzar, tell me what it means, for none of the wise men in my kingdom can interpret it for me. But you can, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Then Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, was greatly perplexed for a time, and his thoughts terrified him. So the king said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its meaning alarm you. Belteshazzar answered, My lord, if only the dream applied to your enemies and its meaning to your adversaries. The tree you saw, which grew large and strong, with its top touching the sky, visible to the whole earth, with beautiful leaves and abundant fruit, providing food for all, giving shelter to the wild animals and having nesting places in its branches for the birds. Your Majesty, you are the tree. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky, and your dominion extends to distant parts of the earth. Your Majesty saw a holy one, a messenger, coming down from heaven and saying, Cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump, bound with iron and bronze, in the grass of the field, while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the wild animals until 7 times pass by for him. 7 times probably means 7 years, because the word 7 times refers to years in chapter 7, verse 25, and because 7 days or months would not have been long enough for Nebuchadnezzar's hair to grow to the length of eagle feathers, as mentioned in verse 33 coming up. This is the interpretation, Your Majesty, and this is the decree the Most High has issued against my lord, the king. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, Your Majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be that then your prosperity will continue. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, as the king was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, he said, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" Even as the words were on his lips, a voice came from heaven. "This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes." Immediately, what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from the people and ate grass like an ox. His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claws of a bird. 2 important questions arise from this incident. 1, could this happen to a man? And 2, could this have happened to Nebuchadnezzar? The answer to both is yes. There is a mental illness known as zoanthropy, in which a man thinks and acts like an animal. It is also called boanthropy, more specifically, when a man thinks of himself as an ox. In answer to the second question, this illness is not mentioned in Nebuchadnezzar's annals, but one would not expect such a humiliating experience to be chronicled. On the other hand, his long reign of 43 years is more than long enough to include this lengthy illness. At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes towards heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt the glory and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just, and those who walk in pride he is able to humble. So just remember, if you're very prideful, God's able to just knock it down and humble you real quick. So that was chapters 3 and 4, the book of Daniel. I hope you're enjoying these Bible studies, and I hope you're sharing them with others. Again, be sure to be sowing these seeds into others. You don't know who needs to hear a word from God today. It could be your neighbor, your family member, a friend. You just don't know what they need to hear from God. So it's up to you to share. Be sowing into others. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Again, our next video is going to be for chapters 5 and 6 in the book of Daniel. And that's just going to be it for today. Still no sponsor video. And again, since we had sewing at the beginning of this video with the introduction, no more sewing for this series, but I will be starting on a new project soon so that I can have one up and ready, hopefully, for our next series. Haven't decided what it's going to be yet, on what chapter, but it will be something in the New Testament, since we're working on an Old Testament book right now. And again, we are going to be doing alternating Old Testament, then New Testament, and back and forth. So that's all for today. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day, and you join us again next week for chapters 5 and 6. And we'll see you then.